Hello and welcome back to the Driven Engineers podcast. Today's episode of the Driven Engineers podcast by Matchtech is a little bit special. I'm recording on site here at Driven International Headquarters. I'm sat here with Ben Willshire, founder of the company, surrounded by the team, track maps on the walls, and a seriously impressive simulator setup just in the other room. Driven is known for designing some of the world's most exciting motorsport venues, blending real-world engineering with virtual innovation. In this episode, we're going to dive into how it all started, what goes into designing a racetrack, and where Ben sees the future of motorsport design heading. So let's get into it. Ben, welcome to the show. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, great intro.
Good, thank you. I always give a little bit away about our guests, but I think it's probably only fair that we let you introduce yourself and just tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, well, no, thanks for having me on the podcast. Nice to meet everyone. Ben Willshire, Managing Director from Driven. I run the day-to-day business here at Driven International. We are, as you said, track designers for motorsport venues. So we get involved in projects all around the world. Anything from Formula One through to go-karting to 4x4 driving. So anything you can drive, we generally will design it. And as you said, it's quite an interesting blend of kind of engineering, science, and creativity as well, which is, has been an interesting career for me to have so far.
Good. And how long has Driven International been incorporated?
So this year will be our 10th birthday in September, actually, which we're looking forward to. So I think we'll do something special to celebrate with the team. So yeah, 10 years.
So let's start right at the beginning then. What first inspired you to start Driven International?
I've always wanted to, have my own business and sort of, help clients and see projects through and being able to manage kind of all aspects of it. So I suppose I've always kind of had that in me that, even from when I was a student, I always had that eventually in my mind that I would want to do that. I'd worked for several years in other design firms and learned a lot and seen how businesses would run. And then I've worked in smaller companies and bigger companies. I spent some time at the Transport Research Laboratory, which was fascinating. And then honestly, just the opportunity came at the right time in 2015 to set up and work on Driven. It was actually the first thing was just one or two small projects, which I started doing on a consultancy basis. And then I just realised the amount of time that I was spending doing that, I had to make a decision on whether to kind of jump that way and do that full time or, carry on with the day job as such. Yeah. So I took the bold decision to do it. I had a supportive family around me to say, yep, go and do it. And I'm glad I did. If that's the case, I would have had to go back and do the day job, which was fun anyway. So yeah, and it's just grown from there now. So really fortunate to have a good team of people.
What was the first motorsport related project that you took on at Driven then, and how did that opportunity come about? Being a brand new business, maybe a little bit difficult to go out and get that first piece of work, but tell us.
It was really interesting actually. So the first project we did was a sustainability project working with Motorsport UK, so the governing body of motorsport here in England, and they wanted us to work on developing an environmental strategy and achieving an accreditation for their business at their headquarters. And I'd worked on some similar projects before in the past and had a contact there. They reached out to me and said, hey, help us with this. And so that's where it started. That's where Driven's first ever project. So it wasn't a track design related project at all. It was sustainability. And I did some other work in the sports and leisure industry doing design and project management. And then from there, excuse the pun, just got more traction. And it went, there's plenty of those. And then it just went from there. And then the first track project we got was actually a really cool project in Miami. Designing a new members track. That just went to planning phase and it didn't get built. But since then, obviously, we've built a lot of other tracks. So it's been quite a journey and worked on different things.
Brilliant. You mentioned the sustainability part. We'll come on to that a little bit later about how important that is and where you think that's going to be going. But it's interesting to know that 10 years ago, that was one of your first projects. So we've come quite a way with that now. Are there any key mentors or early career moments that really shaped about who Ben Willshire is today and how you operate?
Yeah, sure. I think there's a few, mainly previous managers that I've worked with. I have to say, Clive Bowen was a good mentor for me. I worked with him at Apex for 8-9 years under his guidance, and worked with him and did some projects there. So he gave me the confidence to talk at a technical level with clients, and as a small business, so I kind of got to see a lot of different aspects of that. So that was really good. And then when I worked at TRL as well, my director Neil Sharp, I remember he was very different characters, very, very dynamic guy, and very business orientated, business minded, MBA background. So I kind of had some different mentors that I saw and tried to I tried to take the best bits from me.
And learn from the bad bits as well.
Yeah, and I'm generally, I would say, generally a fairly relaxed person. So I kind of like to give people space to operate and do their thing, and I think that's how you get the best out of people, is give them the responsibility and bandwidth to do their jobs, and put the trust into them that they'll deliver.
Absolutely, and you can feel that walking in the office today around the team. They've all got smiles on their faces. Yeah. They certainly respect you, and there's definitely a feel-good sort of atmosphere here when we walked in, so that's really good. You've been involved in some huge international projects. Again, we're going to go into some more detail, but what is your proudest or most defining project so far? What's the one that really stands out?
I have to say yes, Marina, when I did the upgrades for Formula 1 in 2021, which ended up being a very famous race and a big moment, the finale for the championship.
Far enough back, he's going to make the lunge down the inside. Hamilton sees it coming. It's a late lunge by Verstappen, who takes the lead of the race. Verstappen now snatches the championship trophy from Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, we were tasked with redesigning that track from its original design. We ended up modifying around 30% of the circuit and changed the characteristics of it quite drastically in terms of increasing average speed around the circuit, and it all came down to that one point that separated Max and Lewis from the Formula 1 title in 2021. To have gone on that journey to redesign the track, quite a high pressure project, very tight timeline. The quality had to be 110%, and it all came down to a really, really great event. To be able to be there as well at the event was really nice. So I would say that was definitely something that I look back on as a key moment for us as a business, and also I think the team would say I think they would say the same. Yeah.
It was a great moment, and it must have been great to have been there. It's fair to say that you've had part of that championship win that year then by being redesigning that part of the track.
Yeah, I mean the track definitely had an influence on the racing. We've seen the overtaking in Formula 1 that has improved significantly since the circuit was changed. We worked a lot with Formula 1 on that as well, and they gave a lot of input. Simulations, we worked as well on our own simulations. We had Karun Chandok driving in the simulator to test the track. Mark Hughes is a track operator who worked with on it. So we had a lot of inputs, and it all, a lot of experts, and it came out really well. So we're very happy with that.
So regarding that circuit then, what were the biggest challenges in delivering those changes? Just talk to us about, we know what changes you kind of made, but just tell us what the challenges were in actually implementing them.
Yeah, I think so. Changing a track is actually harder than designing a new one, I would say.
Okay.
For all the engineers listening. So, if you imagine you've got a fixed constraint, all of a sudden then you're trying to create your vision, but with all these fixed points that you can't move. So you can't move the grandstands. You can't move, you've got drains in the ground. I know this sounds quite a, boring topic to kind of have to work around, but there's all the things that are underneath the ground, the drainage, all the curbs are there. The paving that's already there has got a slight bit of camber on it.
Right.
So, and you can't ignore that. You have to redesign it to then tie in perfectly so you don't feel any bumps or changes in elevation, sudden changes. So trying to do that to the tolerances that were needed for Formula 1 was probably the biggest challenge on that project. But all the team on the engineering side, the civil engineers, that's what they spent a lot of time on, was looking at the time points and then delivering on time. to the right quality. So, if you take your cost, quality, time sort of triangle, typically that you'd look at as an engineer, we were trying to achieve all of them, really,
Sure.
which usually isn't the case, right? So,
Sure.
that was probably the biggest challenge.
So another one of the circuits that you worked on was Oro Station in Canada. It seems to be a fascinating concept, but what makes that project unique in terms of design?
So the Oro Station project in Canada is a really cool project, headed up by Jeffrey Campbell, who's our client. I think he makes it special, really. Yeah, his vision for it. I think his design, he's got a really good, nice kind of design aesthetic and a good eye for detail. So all of the projects he's done before are very kind of, sort of low-key traditional design. A lot of, the designs we've done there, we've got car barns, for example, so lots of like agricultural architecture, farm architecture, and it just ties into the landscape there in Canada. So that's made that a really, really nice project for us to work on, and the team here really enjoyed it. A lot of greenery, a lot of wooden structures. Yeah, it's been nice. So I think that's what's made that project really nice.
Worked across grassroots and elite racing. How do those experiences compare?
Yeah, I think definitely working, like, for example, we spoke about Formula One earlier. That's, the pinnacle of motorsport.
Sure.
The tolerances, the pace, the kind of, the expectations there to deliver for a big event is key. And to some degree, it's the same with the rallycross as well. When you're doing a track that's got a world championship, you have to deliver it on time to the spec. So that's the difference there with these big events. We've had the same with some of our projects that have hosted MotoGP or World Superbikes. It's the event that's going to take place is the crucial thing, because you can't slip on deadline, and you've got the event promoters are a big stakeholder in that. When you go to grassroots racing, you're more trying to work kind of with a lot of volunteers. You're trying to do something for the good of the sport. You're trying to help like a lot of the clubs to kind of bring their facilities up, and they don't have the same budgets, they don't have the same profile in terms of events. So you have to adapt the way you're working with people. Ultimately, you still want to get the same quality from us, particularly on safety and construction quality. So that's the thing that you just need to balance, is knowing where to put those items. So where not to cut any corners, obviously. So the safety is paramount, and the construction quality. But there's clever things you can do to minimise your design by not using much materials, or designing a track layout that doesn't require as many barriers and things like that. So you just have to think a bit differently. Design.
That's great. And for the listeners who aren't familiar, without giving away too many of your secrets or anything, but can you just talk us through what actually it takes to get an FIA-approved circuit from idea to operation? I appreciate there's probably a lot of stages, there's a lot of hard work needed, but just the general idea of what that means.
Yeah. So a lot of people, when I tell them what we do at Driven, design racetracks, the question I always get asked is, where do you start? Like, what do you do first? So we generally, we'll get a concept of the layout. So if it's a brand new track, for example, we would develop a concept drawing of the layout. Usually start, finish straight, and the pit and paddock is usually kind of where that's going to go. We'll develop some concept ideas, maybe a few different options and scenarios, get that approved by our client who's building the track. And then from there, we quickly develop, we'll run simulation tools to check the safety of the circuit. And we'll also use our driver in the loop simulator to drive the track as well. And once we're happy with it, once the client's happy with it, we'll then develop a package of drawings, so a specific pack of engineering drawings that the FIA specify, which gives all the details on where the marshal posts are, where the safety systems are. We have to give them the profile of the track as well in 3D. That's then all simulated and checked by the FIA, and then they will approve a design review, and then hopefully approve your design, which then goes through then to construction. So there's a big sort of dossier of drawings that we know how to put together, and we've done many times for the FIA. And that's the process. And you don't get the license, your FIA license, and it comes right at the finish line when you've built the track. So it's a long process that you just have to kind of manage a lot of stakeholders along the way.
How do you get that balance then for the need for a thrilling race, but all the technical demands that are needed with safety and regulation? How do you find that balance?
Yeah, it's tricky because you could design yourself out of a good track, quite easily. If you just took the book and said, right, it all has to be, 110% compliant, and we're not going to think about the fun or the drivers or the overtaking, you would design a track that might be quite different. So we're lucky here. I do a lot of racing myself, just at club level, so that helps because you kind of have an understanding of where the overtaking is and re-overtaking and spectator points. The simulator's a really key tool for us, though, that we've developed. So putting tracks into the simulator before they're built, we can test drive them, we can race on them, we can use AI to race against as well, and like simulate race starts and things. So that's become a really, really good tool to kind of just sanity check that we're still being creative with our designs rather than just being too formulaic about it.
We saw the simulator earlier. We're looking forward to you showing us that in more detail later on. But let's talk about sustainability then. We mentioned it earlier on briefly. It's becoming more important in motorsport. How do you integrate environmental considerations into your designs?
It's certainly more of a topic than it was even 10 years ago when we started. I mean, the first project we did, as I mentioned to you, was a sustainability project, which I have to say at the time, I think we were still educating a lot of people about it, kind of how racetracks operate. Now it's much more considered by everyone, rightly so. So we do a few things. We've got our own sustainability strategy as a business that we've implemented last year, which looks at which design materials we're using. So even on the architecture on the track, where we're sourcing materials, are there any technologies we can use around the circuit? But a lot of it comes down to then designing a track that can then be operated sustainably, because you could design the best environmentally friendly circuit, but then if the operator doesn't run it in the right way, it kind of undoes all the work and more so. So we spend quite a lot of time looking on how the facilities are operated when they're handing over. So having the right procedures in place for waste management, having the buildings that they can operate sustainably, whether that's for solar or heat pumps or whatever it is. We look at that. We'll look at having obviously noise as a consideration as well, how to balance the calendar for making sure that the noise limits are sensible. So there's quite a few things that we're proactively doing. And then I spend a lot of time working with Motorsport UK as well on their Sustainability Commission, which is really interesting, and it gives us a good grounding for understanding what's going on in the industry on that front.
Brilliant. You mentioned AI earlier on, the future and how you're going around implementing those and making those changes on track. But how do you future-proof the track for like new technologies like EVs or autonomous testing? Like how does that work?
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, it's definitely a big topic at the moment. I mean, the Marina project, that was a good example. The 2009 original track was built really around the cars at the time. The regulations in Formula One have changed, and therefore the track kind of needed to change. That's kind of a side example. That is almost scaled up another factor by the fact that you've got electric vehicles now becoming used more frequently on race circuits. Obviously, you've got Formula E and other series now. Robo race, their autonomous cars. There's things happening now that we have to consider as track designers. So we are thinking about it more. Pembrey, when we redesigned Pembrey circuit in Wales, we actually added in 2 big braking points, and part of the brief there was to attract more electric vehicle manufacturers to the circuit, because they needed the braking zone in the regen. It's a very fast track, so it is something we're thinking about. Even with Formula One now, we're looking a lot at how the energy is harvested and what type of corners we design on the Formula One tracks to make sure that the cars get the maximum speeds down the straight out of corners. So there's quite a lot that we're doing. I think the other thing we're seeing, though, is just a real passion for automotive. I mean, Goodwood, everyone's familiar with Goodwood. People love it because they get to go and drive, manual car, manual shift cars and older vehicles that we all remember maybe wanting when we were at college or what have you, or obviously more historical classic cars. But that's become a big area for us as well. Sure. And so actually designing tracks where classic cars can be used is a real consideration. You don't want to have massive braking zones for them. Yeah. So you've almost got the opposite. having like different layouts that can work for classic cars, EVs, and then regular racing is all part of our brief, and we have to talk to clients a lot about it. So
I'm sure it's in there.
yeah,
Brilliant. In 2020, you won the Queen's Award for Enterprise in International Trade. Huge achievement. What did that mean to you?
yeah, it's probably one of our biggest achievements, a big milestone. I think, like the 2021 Marina project. We won again in 24, actually, the King's Award as well, which we're really proud of. I think it just, in the industry we're in, there isn't really a recognised kind of certification for tracks other than having your track approved, obviously, by the FIA. And we're working all around the world. And that was a really recognition of our trading internationally. It's been recognised really well by our clients, particularly, in America and India, across Southeast Asia. They see that we're working at that level. And it was just a nice recognition for all of the team. So we really enjoyed receiving that award.
Brilliant. That's great. How do you decide then which projects to go after? Which ones do you actually decide internationally and go, that's for us because?
It's a little bit reactive. Obviously, we will react to the market. If we have inquiries coming into us for people that are wanting to build new tracks or developers. So, and obviously that's quite a personal choice for them. It's like, if you were doing something in your house at home, which architect you use is a personal choice. And it's the same when, you're designing a racetrack, I guess, that people will come to us if they feel that we're the right fit for them. So somewhat reactive. But I do have to say, in the last few years, we've been quite proactive in making the effort to develop more motorsport in India. Mm-hmm. So I think we've done more tracks than anyone else in India. Pretty much all the new circuits, whether they're street circuits, kart tracks, or brand new circuits, we've generally been involved. That's because we put the time and effort into getting out there, understanding the culture, the market. So India, we've been quite proactive, and also the same in the US with the club track. So, and that's just through spending time being there.
Was there ever a project that didn't go to plan?
Not really. I think I can't think of anything that really stands out as a failure. We've delivered all of our projects. The best projects we've done have always had a project management company involved, actually, which is really interesting for me to observe. I think having that as an engineering function often goes undervalued a lot of the time. You've got a lot of designers, engineers, very, very talented people, but actually having one organisation over it, kind of managing everyone, has been, they're usually the most successful projects. I would say probably in terms of things that haven't gone to plan, it's usually a change in brief from our client midway through. That can change things, and that probably just knocks on the timescale or budget. But generally, we've managed them all and got them built as planned. I think I'll come back to you if I think of anything.
So, what keeps Ben Willshire motivated every day?
Yeah, driven's a good name for the company, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It says a lot about my personality. I don't need a lot of motivation to get things done. I'm just, quite driven as a person, I guess. What motivates me? I think just seeing a lot of the team grow individually. So you met Jack earlier, who's started here doing administration work in the summer job. Now he's heading up all of our visualization work, and he's truly world class at what he does. That's been amazing to see. I'm really, really proud of that. And I could say the same for a lot of the other team. Keegan, so one of our civil engineers, now really, progressed into his role as a principal engineer. We've got Matt, Matt was designing tracks at home, as a hobby. I actually saw it online and got in touch with him, and now he's worked with us for, again, 7 or 8 years. So I think seeing the people develop, and that's what we want to start doing again, bring some more youngsters into the business to develop them. So I think that's probably the main thing. And just seeing, I'm quite competitive as a person, I think. Yeah, just seeing what we can do in the space, in the industry, and seeing which projects we can deliver. That's what makes me tick. Yeah.
Brilliant. Do you still, do you still do the hands-on work with the design work, or is your role now more sort of strategic and leading the team?
Yeah, I think inevitably as companies grow and stuff, it's more, you have to take a bit of responsibility for making sure you don't too involved in too much detail. And I kind of caveat that a little bit in that it's still important, still across everything, but you have to trust people in their roles. Yeah, I would like to do more design. I probably don't do as much as I used to, that's for sure. But I can, still operate the CAD machines. I can still do the drawings. I think that helps a lot to be able to speak at a technical level with the team. I'm involved a lot more at the concept stage, mainly like deciding how the track's going to be laid out, what the vision is, where things go. And then I work a lot with Dan Selby, who's our track designer, on safety aspects. So liaison with the FIA, FIM, but motorcycle racing or car racing. So I'm still quite heavily involved in that side. And then I try to put a bit more time into the strategic side to grow the company in terms of looking at what technology is coming around, what we're doing on sustainability. So it's a bit of a mix.
Interesting. Is there a balance between entertainment, sustainability, and safety shifting in your view?
Yes, sustainability is a lot, bigger consideration now, both from a kind of CRS perspective in terms of our responsibilities as a company and client as well. So cost has a big impact on cost as well, like how you design things. So I'd say in terms of weighting, obviously safety is always at the top. Sustainability is having more of an influence now as well, and like into your designs. But yeah, we have to think of think of them more really, make sure clients happy and the project's sustainable, not environmentally, but sustainable for the future in terms of commercials as well. Make sure that it actually can, stand the test of time.
Sure. Talk about your time at TRL. Tell us about what you were working on and what you were doing at that time.
My time at TRL, so Transport Research Laboratory, was a good couple of years that I'll look back on fondly, mainly because of the people. Such a good bunch of people, super talented, super clever people. But I got involved with a lot of crash testing. So, my job was, I think it was engineering manager for product testing.
Okay.
So I was responsible for the laboratories essentially and all the crash tests and any tests that we did. We had, I'm smiling because I remember it was quite good fun. We did all sorts of things. We'd test anything from a child seat, our child seats, do testing on those. And then the next day we'd be doing a full scale train crash. And when I say, full scale, it was full train cabins and doing crash testing on those. And then we did a lot in Formula One space as well, testing a lot of the safety on the F1 cars. So for me, it was an interesting experience seeing a different side of engineering and working with different people, which has helped, I think, what we've done at Driven.
Brilliant. You had to design one dream project. No budget, no limitations. Okay.
I think we've done it. We've done it by accident. So we've actually designed our dream racetrack.
You mentioned this briefly earlier on.
Yeah, so we're going to have you drive it, so you can come and drive it. So it's got everything in there. It's got Silverstone, it's got Thruxton, it's got Monaco, it's got Bathurst.
Tell us about that. How did that come about, and what was the idea behind that?
Yeah, a lot of the drivers, touring car drivers, gave us snippets of their favourite track. So, and they said, "Oh, can you, knock up something as a dream track?"
Yeah.
And we got a bit carried away and ended up building it as full digital model. So we've got it on the simulator, so you can have a little play on that and see what you think. So I think that was our dream racetrack. Dream project, I don't know. I would really like to do more of the sort of club tracks, these sort of golf resort style racetracks where you have the villas around and people like a lifestyle project.
Yeah.
It's very, very popular in the US. I'd love to do something like that in Europe or Southeast Asia, which I think is realistic for us to do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Without giving too much away, what are you working on at the moment?
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about some of our new projects. Just recently had the Lara racing circuit announced, which is in Bulgaria. That's heading into construction now. Well, they're well underway. In fact, the team are there today. So that will be a new, Bulgaria's first racetrack, which is very cool. We're very proud of that. And we don't get to work in Europe very often. There's not many new racetracks coming in Europe. So it's really nice to see. And that's a 4-kilometre racetrack for cars and bikes. So yeah, that will open next year. And then we've got the Motorsports Gateway project also coming out of the ground in Michigan, which is a more of a club performance driving track, and that will open again later this year. 2 projects that we should see, with the Driven DNA integrated into the design, and then we've got one other bigger project coming soon, hopefully, which I can't talk about. Hopefully, more opportunities working in at the pinnacle of sport again, so that would be nice.
Look forward to seeing that. A couple more questions then. What would you tell your younger self if you could go back to the start of your career or your journey? What advice would you give yourself?
I think you just have to do what you enjoy. I think that's what has helped me a lot, and the team here, they all do what they enjoy, I hope. When I was at university, I actually studied mechanical engineering, so I was set to go into motorsport in terms of being a race engineer. That's what I wanted to go and do.
Yeah.
I didn't set out to go and work on designing racetracks. It's not the sort of thing you think is a job, right? So I kind of fell into it by accident through Clive, as I mentioned earlier, and Apex. So that was a really interesting kind of branch off for me, and I just really enjoyed it. I was fascinated by it. So I think, yeah, just do what you enjoy, and then you'll find your feet in terms of doing well at it. If you enjoy something, it's not hard to get out of bed in the morning and do it. So I think that's the key thing. Keep pushing yourself.
Brilliant. We have a lot of young engineers, students that listen to the podcast who are, trying to break into the space, become an engineer within the automotive or motorsport. What advice would you give to those people that are trying to break into it at the moment?
I think the biggest advice for me, I've got a big group of friends that are all at university together, all studying engineering, we've all gone off and done different things in life. And depending what you want to do, I think it's really important to kind of focus on becoming either a deep specialist in one area, and if that's your passion and you enjoy it, you should absolutely pursue that. So if it's CFD or if it's structural engineering or whatever it is, then become the best you can be at that. But if you want to work across a broader range of engineering, I would say getting more exposure to the commercial side is really important as well. Myself and some of my other friends that have become directors of businesses or run our own businesses, we've all become more aware. Things like contract law and how the commercial side of engineering works, so like cost factors and project management, that side of it, still having a technical base, but if you can broaden your knowledge on that as well, it really stands out in the industry and it gives you a more rounded view. So I think you have to kind of decide, do you want to go deep technical specialist, or do you want to be a bit broader? And if you want to be broader, get more knowledge on some of the project management and commercial side as well as technical, and then it'll give you a good grounding overall.
That's really good advice. Yeah, brilliant. We'll leave it there. That's the end of the episode. Ben, thank you so much for allowing us to come in today and letting us meet the team and getting a little bit of an understanding about what you do. And thank you very much.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.